I found out on a Tuesday morning, the kind that looks harmless on the outside. Pale sunlight leaked through the blinds of my childhood bedroom, striping the floor in soft gold. I knelt down, pried up the loose floorboard with my fingers, and reached for the envelope I'd hidden there a week earlier. It should have been thick, heavy, reassuring. It wasn't. The envelope felt wrong the second it touched my hand, too light, like it had already said goodbye. I opened it anyway. Empty. Just paper and air where $15,950 was supposed to be. My sister's tuition. Every late night. Every skipped trip. Every time I told myself I didn't need much. I waited for the reaction everyone talks about. The panic. The sobbing. The shaking hands. None of it came. My heart didn't race. My throat didn't close. I just sat there on the carpet, dust clinging to my palms, staring at the hollow space beneath the floor like it was explaining something I'd known for years, but never wanted to say out loud. Down the hallway, I heard the familiar click of heels. Shopping bags rustled. Someone hummed, off-key, careless, happy. Tiffany. My sister. The sound drifted through the house like background noise from another life. I slid the envelope back under the board, pressed the wood into place, and stood up slowly. In the mirror, my face looked calm. Too calm. That kind of stillness that settles in after the truth lands and there's nowhere left to run. I didn't cry because something finally broke. Not the money. The pattern. I sat on the floor longer than I needed to, the loose board resting against the wall like it was watching me. The empty space underneath felt louder than any scream. $15,950. A number I knew by heart, because every dollar in it had a story. Late nights. Missed trips. Side contracts I took when I was already exhausted. Every time I told myself, "You're fine. You don't need much." I thought about the vacations I skipped while coworkers posted beach photos from Florida or Napa. The weekends I said no to brunch, no to concerts, no to anything that cost more than groceries. I drove my old Honda until the radio barely worked, told myself it built character. I believed that discipline was strength, that sacrifice was temporary. That one day it would mean something. That money wasn't just savings. It was proof that I could be steady when everything else felt uncertain. Proof that I could take care of my family when it mattered. I had tucked it under that floorboard like it was sacred, like hiding it there would protect it. Like the house itself remembered who I was when I was younger, who I'd become. And now it was gone. What hurt wasn't just the loss. It was realizing how easy it was for someone else to treat my restraint like excess, my caution like comfort, my discipline like something disposable. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I just felt this slow, burning ache settle into my chest. Quiet, heavy, undeniable. For the first time, I wondered how many times I'd told myself I didn't need much because it made things easier for everyone else. And I wondered what it had cost me to believe that. For years, our family looked like the kind people envy from the outside. White siding, trimmed hedges, a porch light that always worked. Sunday dinners, polite smiles, the illusion of balance. But living inside it felt different. It felt uneven, like a house built just slightly off level, where everything slowly slid in one direction. That direction was always Tiffany. My parents never said it outright. Favoritism rarely announces itself. It shows up in smaller ways. Who gets the benefit of the doubt, whose mistakes are softened into excuses, whose needs are treated like emergencies. I learned early that if I wanted something, I should earn it quietly. Work harder. Ask less. Be reasonable. Tiffany learned she could just ask. When I said no, I was serious. When she cried, the room rearranged itself around her feelings. Teachers praised her sparkle. Neighbors remembered her birthday. I was dependable. She was adored. I told myself it didn't bother me. And maybe it didn't, not at first. I became good at being steady. I took pride in it. Someone had to keep things running smoothly, and I fit that role like a second skin. But over time, that steadiness turned heavy. I was the backup plan, no one acknowledged as a plan. Even when money got tight, the pattern held. Promises bent toward her. Sacrifices flowed from me. Late at night, I'd hear my parents whisper, "Well, make it work," and I knew exactly what that meant. It wasn't anger that settled in me back then. It was something quieter. A low, constant ache. The feeling of being necessary, but never chosen. I learned early that there were two different rules in our house, even if no one ever said them out loud. One for me. One for Tiffany. By the time I was 8, I knew how to microwave dinner, fold my own laundry, and keep quiet when the adults were tired. I learned not to ask for much. Not because I didn't want things, but because wanting felt like a weakness I couldn't afford. If I needed school supplies, I waited. If I wanted new sneakers, I checked the clearance rack with my own babysitting money. Independence wasn't praised. It was expected. Tiffany, on the other hand, was protected like glass. If she forgot her homework, Mom drove it to school. If she cried, Dad softened instantly. Her tears had gravity. They pulled everyone toward her. When I said no, I was being difficult. When she pouted, the rules bent, then broke. I remember one night in middle school when I asked for a used laptop so I could type essays faster. Dad told me I should save up, it would build character. 2 months later, Tiffany mentioned wanting a new phone at dinner. By Friday, it was on the kitchen counter, still in the box. No lecture. No lesson. Just love, wrapped in plastic, and good intentions. I told myself it didn't hurt. That this was just how families worked. That someone had to be the strong one. I became good at swallowing disappointment, good at smiling through it, good at convincing myself that needing less made me better. But the truth is, it wasn't strength. It was survival. I learned to stand on my own not because I was braver, but because no one was coming to catch me. And for a long time, I mistook that loneliness for maturity. When my family started slipping financially, there wasn't a meeting or a long discussion. It was just a phone call on a Tuesday night, my dad's voice lower than usual, the TV murmuring in the background. He said Tiffany's tuition bill was coming due, and things were tight. Real tight. Mom was picking up extra tutoring hours. Overtime had dried up at his plan. He didn't ask me directly, not at first. He didn't have to. I'd just landed a solid job in Boston. Good salary, long hours, the kind of work that makes your shoulders ache but your bank account finally breathe. I'd spent years telling myself I didn't need much. No big trip. No fancy apartment. I saved because it felt responsible, because someone had to be. So when Dad finally said, "We're not sure how we're going to cover it," the decision settled in my chest before he finished the sentence. "I'll take care of it," I said. Too fast. Too easy. After we hung up, I sat on the edge of my bed staring at my laptop, the numbers glowing back at me. $15,950. Every skipped vacation. Every weekend I worked instead of resting. Every time I chose practical over fun. I transferred the money anyway, my jaw clenched, my heart steady in that familiar way it gets when responsibility takes over. When I told Tiffany, she cried and hugged me like she hadn't in years. "I don't know what I'd do without you," she said, her voice shaking. I wanted to believe that meant something lasting. I wanted to believe the sacrifice would finally balance the scales. But deep down, as I closed my banking app and watched my savings drain to near zero, I knew the truth. I wasn't just helping my sister. I was doing what I'd always done, catching everyone before they hit the ground, even if it meant I had nothing left to break my own fall. For a moment, I really believed it was worth it. Tiffany hugged me in the narrow hallway outside my old bedroom, the one with the loose floorboard I still hadn't fixed. Her arms wrapped around me tighter than usual, like she was afraid I might disappear if she let go. I smelled her shampoo, something sweet and expensive, and felt that familiar mix of pride and exhaustion settle into my chest. "You're the best," she said into my shoulder. "I don't know what I'd do without you." I laughed softly, because that's what I always did. I told her it was fine, that it was just money, that she should focus on school and not stress. I said it like I meant it, even though I knew exactly what that number cost me. Late nights at Boston Tech, skipped vacations, weekends traded for freelance work, the quiet promise I'd made to myself that someday I'd slow down. She pulled back, eyes shiny, and for once they looked sincere. Not demanding. Not performative. Just grateful. Or at least I wanted to believe that's what I was seeing. We sat at the kitchen table afterward, drinking bad coffee from mismatched mugs. She talked about classes, about campus life, about how next semester would be different. She promised she'd do better. She always promised. And I always nodded, filing those promises away like receipts I never checked. When she hugged me again before leaving, she squeezed my hand and said, "I won't forget this." That was the moment. The fragile one. The version of the story where sacrifice turns into connection, where love is returned in equal measure. I held on to it longer than I should have. Because trust, I've learned, doesn't shatter all at once. Sometimes it softens first, right before it breaks. I got back from Seattle late Sunday night. The kind of late where the airport feels hollow and every Uber driver wants to talk. The house should felt familiar the second I stepped inside. Instead, it felt staged. Too quiet, too clean, like someone had reset it while I was gone. The porch light flicked on as I unlocked the door. No TV murmuring in the living room. No footsteps on the stairs. Just the soft hum of the refrigerator and the click of the lock behind me. My parents' bedroom door was closed, a thin line of light glowing underneath. They were asleep already. That alone felt wrong. They usually waited up when I traveled. I set my suitcase down and stood there longer than I needed to, listening. The air smelled different. Not mom's lemon cleaner or dad's aftershave, but something sweeter, expensive, sharp. The kind of perfume you notice in department stores, not hallways you grew up in. I told myself I was tired, jet-lagged, reading into nothing. Still, my shoulders stayed tense as I walked down the hall. Tiffany's door was shut. No music leaking through, no phone laughter, no chaos. She was either asleep or pretending to be. Both possibilities made my stomach tighten. I poured a glass of water and leaned against the counter, staring at the dark window over the sink. My reflection looked older than it had a week ago. Maybe it was the trip. Maybe it was the way the house felt like it was holding its breath. I went to my room and dropped onto the bed without turning on the light. The floorboard crossed my mind, uninvited. I didn't check it. Not yet. I lay there listening to the silence stretch, convincing myself everything was fine, while every instinct I trusted whispered that something had already gone wrong. I knelt on the hardwood floor of my childhood bedroom, the grain of the wood pressed into my knees, dust clinging to my palms. The loose floorboard lifted easier than I remembered. For a second, I felt almost nostalgic, like I might find old notes or candy wrappers again. Instead, my fingers closed around nothing. The envelope was still there. Light. Too light. I slid it out, already knowing. When I opened it, the air inside felt colder than the room. Empty. No cash. No edges of paper. Just the hollow echo of what should have been there. My body didn't react the way I expected. No scream. No tears. My heart started pounding, slow and loud, like it was trying to wake the rest of me up. I sat back on my heels and listened, to the refrigerator humming down the hall, to a faucet dripping somewhere, to my own breathing sounding foreign in my ears. The world hadn't stopped. It just didn't care. $15,950. A number so specific it had weight. Every late night. Every skipped trip. Every time I told myself I didn't need more. Gone. Oh. I checked again. The desk drawer. The closet. Under the bed. I knew it was useless, but denial has muscle memory. Nothing else was touched. My laptop sat exactly where I'd left it. Jewelry box closed. No broken locks. No forced entry. That's when the truth settled in. Quiet, unavoidable. Whoever took it didn't break in. They walked in. They knew where to look. I pressed the envelope flat in my hands, smoothing creases that no longer mattered. I expected rage. What I felt instead was a strange, terrifying calm. The kind that comes right before something inside you hardens. In that stillness, I understood one thing with absolute clarity. Whatever came next, I wasn't fixing this anymore. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. What I felt wasn't blind rage. It was something colder. The kind of anger that clears your vision instead of blurring it. The proof was sitting in the bathroom trash like it wanted to be found. Crumpled receipts, glossy and thick. Nordstrom. Neiman Marcus. Saks. I smoothed them out on the counter, one by one, my fingers steady. The totals made my stomach drop, but my hands didn't shake. Dates circled in my head, every single one lining up with the 3 days I'd been gone. While I was eating conference sandwiches in Seattle and pretending my hotel room felt like home, she'd been shopping. I opened my phone. Instagram. My second account, the one she forgot about years ago. The screen loaded slowly, cruelly. There she was. Shopping bags spread across a white hotel bed like trophies. A caption, "Best girls weekend ever." Another story, her laughing, wrist lifted just enough to show off a brand new gold watch, the kind you don't buy unless you want to be seen buying it. That was the moment something inside me locked into place. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't desperation. It was entitlement with good lighting and a filter. She didn't just take my money, she turned it into content. Into proof that she believed I'd clean it up, like I always had. My phone buzzed. A text from Jackson. "Saw your sister downtown last night. She was spending like a trust fund kid. Everything okay?" I set the phone down and exhaled slowly. The anger settled, dense and controlled. Not explosive. Decisive. I knew then I wasn't going to confront her the way she expected. No yelling. No rescuing. Just the truth, waiting for her, quiet, undeniable, and done covering for her anymore. I didn't raise my voice when she walked into the kitchen. I didn't slam a drawer or demand explanations. I just looked at her. Tiffany stood there with 4 glossy shopping bags digging into her wrists, perfume trailing behind her like she'd brought them all home with her. Gold watch flashing. Perfect hair. The same easy smile she'd used her whole life, already halfway to an excuse. "Oh, hey," she said, too casual. "Thought you were still in Seattle." "Wrapped up early," I replied, closing my laptop with deliberate care. My voice sounded steady, almost polite. That surprised even me. She talked fast after that. Sales. Discounts. End of season. Miracles. Words stacked on top of words, like if she kept them coming, I wouldn't get a chance to breathe. I let her talk. I always had. But this time I was listening differently. I watched her eyes dart. I watched her fingers tighten on the bag handles. I watched the moment she realized I wasn't stepping in to soften the landing. When I slid the receipts onto the counter, the room shifted. No yelling. No accusations. Just paper against granite. The sound was quiet, but it landed hard. "You went through my stuff?" she whispered. "Bathroom trash," I said. "Shared space." She tried tears next. Then guilt. Then anger. Every version of her I'd grown up with, cycling through like a greatest hits album. I didn't interrupt. I didn't defend myself. I just stayed still. That's when I understood something that felt almost calm. Silence was the first boundary I'd ever held. "I was going to pay you back," she said. "You make good money. You won't even miss it." I met her eyes then. Really met them. "I already have," I said quietly. And for the first time in her life, there was no rescue waiting on the other side of her lies. I didn't raise my voice when Tiffany said it. That was the strangest part. She stood there in the kitchen, arms crossed like a teenager caught past curfew, and said, "I was just borrowing it. I was going to pay you back." Borrowing? Like the word itself could sand down what she'd done. I remember the hum of the refrigerator, the smell of expensive perfume clashing with burnt coffee. My hands were steady on the counter. Too steady. She kept talking, filling the space the way she always did. About stress, about fitting in, about how everyone at school had nicer things. You make good money, she added, almost casually. It's not like you'll miss it. That's when it hit me. Not the theft, not the number, but the pattern. I saw myself at 16 stacking cans after school. At 22 skipping trips, side hustling weekends, telling myself I didn't need much. I saw every moment I'd stepped in quietly, paid something off, smoothed things over so no one had to sit with discomfort. I thought I was helping. I thought I was being loving. What I'd really been doing was teaching her that consequences were optional, as long as I was around. She started to cry then, the familiar soft breakdown that usually flips some switch in me. Fix it. Say it's okay. Make it go away. I felt the instinct rise, and then stop. Like slamming on brakes you didn't know you had. I didn't steal from you, she said through tears. I needed it. I looked at her, and finally understood how I'd helped build this version of her. Not with money, but with silence. With rescue. With love that never said no. And for the first time, I didn't reach for her. I let the truth sit there between us, heavy and unavoidable. It hurt. But it was clean. I'd always known the easiest thing would be to pay it again. That's what everyone expected. What she expected. I could picture it clearly. Me sighing, transferring the money, telling myself I'd figure it out later. I'd done that dance my whole life. Fix it. Smooth it over. Keep the peace. But standing there in the kitchen, the afternoon light hitting the designer bags at her feet, something in me finally stopped moving. I'm not paying it, I said. The words didn't shake. My hands didn't either. That surprised me most. Tiffany stared at me like I'd switched languages. You're kidding, she said, half laughing, half panicking. Sarah, come on. You always help. The deadline's Monday. I looked past her, out the window where the neighbor's kid was learning to ride a bike, wobbling, falling, getting back up. No one ran out to catch him. I already helped, I said. You just didn't like how. Her face crumpled. The tears came fast, familiar. You can't let this ruin my life. I felt it then, that sharp, aching pull in my chest. The part of me that wanted to rescue her just to make the crying stop. But right under it was something steadier. Heavier. Truth. This won't ruin your life, I said quietly. It's just going to change it. The room went silent. No yelling. No slamming doors. Just the sound of the refrigerator humming, the clock ticking toward consequences I wasn't going to intercept. Walking away felt cruel for about 3 steps. Then it felt like breathing. For the first time, I wasn't choosing comfort. I was choosing reality, for both of us. The kitchen felt smaller that morning, like the walls had leaned in overnight. Sunlight spilled across the tile, too bright for what was coming. Dad sat at the table scrolling through his tablet. Mom poured coffee she didn't drink, and Tiffany kept her eyes fixed on the rim of her mug like it held answers. The phone rang. Old landline. The kind that only brings bad news now. Dad answered casually, then stilled. His jaw tightened. Overdue, he repeated. Since Friday. A pause. Yes, Monday. Another pause. Longer this time. When he hung up, the air went thick. What happened to the tuition money? He asked, slow and precise. Tiffany froze. I felt it before she spoke, the shift, the weight dropping. Her gaze flicked to me, wide and pleading. I didn't move. I didn't rescue her. I don't understand, she started, voice thin. Dad leaned forward. Tell me it wasn't you. Silence stretched until it hurt. Mom's hands trembled against the counter. Tiffany's shoulders collapsed inward, like she was folding into herself. I borrowed it, she whispered. How much? Dad asked. She swallowed. All of it. The word landed hard. Mom sat down like her knees gave out. No yelling. No chaos. Just disappointment, sharp and quiet. You stole tuition money your sisters saved for you? Dad said. Not angry. Worse. Certain. Tiffany broke then, tears shaking, apologies tumbling over each other. Shame poured out of her, raw and unfiltered. She kept saying she didn't mean to, that she just wanted to feel normal. I stood there, heart pounding, realizing something awful and necessary at the same time. This was the first moment she wasn't being protected from the truth. And it hurt everyone in the room. The decision didn't come with shouting. That's what surprised me most. It came quietly, like a door closing for good. We sat around the kitchen table Sunday afternoon, the same one where homework used to pile up and birthdays were planned. Dad folded his hands, Mom stared at her coffee, and Tiffany kept twisting the sleeve of her sweater like she could unravel the moment if she tried hard enough. "You're withdrawing for the semester," Dad said finally. His voice wasn't angry. It was steady. That scared her more. Her head snapped up. "You can't be serious." "I am," he said. "And you're getting a job, immediately. Every dollar you took, you pay back." She looked at me then, the way she always had. Waiting. Hoping I'd jump in, smooth it over, make it less painful. For years I would have. My mouth even opened out of habit. But I closed it. Mom swallowed hard. "This isn't punishment," she said softly. "This is consequence." Tiffany's eyes filled, panic rising fast. "So you're just letting me fail?" "No," I said before I could stop myself. My voice surprised even me, calm, clear. "We're letting you take responsibility." Silence pressed down on the room. You could hear the refrigerator hum, a car pass outside, normal life continuing while something fundamental cracked open inside our family. Dad slid the stack of receipts toward her. "Everything you bought gets returned. What can't be returned you sell." Her shoulders slumped. For the first time, she looked younger than her age. Smaller. Stripped of excuses. "I'll do it," she whispered. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel relief. What I felt was grief, for the version of love we'd all been clinging to, the kind that rescues instead of teaches. That day, we didn't save Tiffany. We finally gave her the chance to save herself. Watching Tiffany change wasn't dramatic. There was no single apology that fixed everything, no movie-style breakthrough. Growth came quietly, the way real consequences always do. It started with work. Real work. Early mornings, burnt coffee smells clinging to her clothes, feet aching by the time she came home. She got a job at a cafe downtown, the kind where customers snap their fingers and write tips with judgment. The first night she came back exhausted, she dropped $62 on the kitchen counter and said, almost embarrassed, "It's not much, but I earned it." I nodded. For the first time, she wasn't asking to be rescued. Every Saturday after that, she handed me an envelope. Sometimes it held $100, sometimes less. I never counted it in front of her. I just wrote the total on a sticky note taped to the fridge. The number climbed slowly. Painfully slowly. But it climbed. Responsibility has a pace of its own. Family therapy came next. Dr. Lambert's office smelled like peppermint tea and old carpet. We sat too far apart at first. My parents spoke in apologies they'd never said out loud. I admitted how much I'd wrap my worth around fixing everyone else. Tiffany mostly listened. Then one afternoon she said, "I never learned how to be sorry without expecting someone to save me." No tears. Just truth. That's when I knew she was changing. Her apologies stopped sounding like fear and started sounding like ownership. Not, "I'm sorry, please don't be mad, but I did this, and I'll keep fixing it." Slowly, she learned that regret means nothing without action. And I learned that love doesn't always look like help. Sometimes it looks like stepping back and letting someone finally carry their own weight. By spring, the house sounded different. Not louder, quieter in a clean way. No slammed doors. No whispered arguments after midnight. Just the drip of the coffee maker at dawn, and the soft thud of footsteps heading out before sunrise. Tiffany left early now. Hair pulled back. Cafe apron folded over her arm. She didn't rush. She didn't complain. The first morning she came home smelling like espresso and sugar syrup, she set $62 in crumpled bills on the counter and said, "It's not much, but it's honest." I nodded. That was enough. Every Saturday she handed me an envelope. Sometimes it held 100. Sometimes less. I never counted it in front of her. I just wrote the total on a sticky note on the fridge. The number grew slowly, the way trust does when it's rebuilt instead of replaced. One night, she slipped a note under my door. No perfume. No hearts drawn in the corners. Just handwriting that looked steadier than before. "Thank you for letting me fall. You made me stand up." I sat on the edge of my bed and felt something loosen in my chest. Not relief. Not victory. Something quieter. Acceptance. For most of my life, I thought love meant fixing things before they broke. Covering the cost. Filling the gap. Stepping in, so no one else had to feel the consequences. I told myself it was strength. It wasn't. It was fear dressed up as responsibility. This time, I didn't save her. I stood still. And in that stillness, something healed. She learned how to carry herself. I learned how to let go. Love didn't disappear when I drew the line. It got healthier. Sometimes love isn't the hand that catches you. It's the silence that finally lets you learn how to climb. By spring, the house finally sounded honest. No slammed doors, no late-night bargaining, just a coffee maker at dawn and Tiffany's footsteps leaving for her cafe job. Every Saturday she handed me an envelope, small bills that smelled like espresso and effort. I didn't count in front of her. I just nodded and wrote the total on the fridge. One night, she slid a note under my door. "Thank you for letting me fall." I sat there, quiet, realizing I wasn't the fixer anymore. I was the boundary. And somehow, that was love. Message. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is stop rescuing, so someone finally learns how to stand.